First, to see that our next speaker is available, I call upon Edgar.
Hello, can you hear me?
Edgar, yeah, Edgar, you're there.
Fine, yeah.
My precious compatriot from the Netherlands.
Yes, I'm happy to be here. Excellent. Because this reminds me that it was 7 years ago that I organized myself a kickoff to become an activist in the monetary reform movement. And this kickoff, that was my trip to Chicago to visit the AMI conference.
Oh, wonderful,
so,
wonderful.
Yes, that kickoff was also a kickstart that way.
Yes. Yeah, this conference can do that to you. For me, it was 2014 that gave me a kind of a kick. But anyway, before we start with you, let me do a little introduction. I already told people if they know my nationality, they know yours. So you're from the Netherlands. Mm-hmm. You're still living in Zutphen.
Still living in Zutphen,
yeah,
yes.
I live there too. It's one of the cutest places in the Netherlands. If people visit the Netherlands, go to Zutphen.
The historic Hanseatic city.
Yes.
They had heyday 900 years ago.
Yes, and for 700 years, they had a weekly market that was not disrupted by any campaign or war or Napoleon or Hitler. It just kept going every week.
Yes, okay, and it won on gold and silver.
Edgar is a company lawyer specialized in financial and property law. And so a lot of his conceptualization of the monetary issue is very much on a more legal basis than economic, though they overlap, of course, because there's political economics and economic politics. As he said, 7 years ago, he was at the AMI conference and then later was associated with, says here, but probably also co-founder of Ons Geld, Our Money organization in the Netherlands, which is our sister organization in that country. And that organization is committed to the reform of the monetary system. I will not talk about the the theater show. I finally got to see it by the Seducers, the Dutch theater production that made some splash in the Netherlands, more or less explaining the ups and downs of banking and the morality of it. Many people were thinking of having it translated into English, but it would not. It would carry. It's too Dutch. It's too contextual.
And it was Dutch. Contemporary. It fitted in that time.
Correct.
So
correct.
You should do something original now.
Exactly.
That tunes into the things of this time.
Exactly. So Edgar will talk about the politics of save money, and I don't know if the subtitle was an update on the monetary reform campaign in the Netherlands. Edgar, the floor is yours.
Yes. So, well, then 7 years ago, I started with the Ons Geld group to address the problems with the money system. And we wanted to make it a public debate. And with the help of this theater group, we also brought it to the political arena, to the Dutch parliament. And the money system was discussed there as a result of that. And that also had a certain outcome. And the outcome was that the House in the Netherlands unanimously voted in favor of creating a safe alternative to the bank account. The idea was that the public should have an option to not lend its money out to banks, to not finance banks with its money, but just keep it somewhere digitally safe in a way that it is not invested in a bank. And Parliament thought that is a good idea. And well, that raised some eyebrows in the banking community, because that would really upset the current system. It's quite revolutionary to build such a thing within the current system. So they said, well, yeah, good idea, but we need to think about it. So then a committee was set up of the Dutch a scientific board that advises the government to say something about this, whether it was a good idea or not. Well, they took 3 years to study this subject, and after 3 years, they said, yes, this is a good idea. We should do that. We should give the people an alternative, a safe alternative for the bank account. And they also had a reason why that was a good idea, according to them. And that reason was that when the people have an alternative, then that would discipline the banks. Because if the people get the option to move their money away from the banks have to finance themselves and be active in a less risky way. So in a way, it would reduce moral hazard if banks know that people can put their money to a safe haven. So after this, we thought, well, the parliament was 100% in favor. The scientists are 100% in favor. So now you guess that we will get this safe alternative to the bank account. Well, so far it has not been achieved. The finance minister and the Dutch central bank did everything they could to prevent this from happening. And well, that was followed up with another debate in Parliament, after which the central bank had also give its vision about what should happen on the next steps in this arrangement. And the Netherlands Central Bank took the debate over. It came with another plan in a way. It said, well, maybe it's not a good idea to have a safe alternative to the bank account, but maybe it's a good idea to have a safe alternative or a digital alternative for physical cash. And that's what we like to build. And we call this CBDC. Everybody's talking about CBDC. So instead of getting a safe alternative to the bank account, we want to do CBDC. And Parliament had a debate about this, and there were various concerns about this. For instance, that a majority, and later we would see that this was unanimous. There was unanimous support for keeping cash alive. So Parliament, as a response to this, Parliament said unanimously, no, we don't want to go on a road to the end of cash. We want to have a safe alternative for the bank account. And this should not be a substitute for cash money, because we need to prolong cash money as a backup for all those digital systems, and as a way for anonymous for privacy, for anonymous payment. So Parliament was very much not in favor of the idea of replacing cash with some kind of CBDC, and but it also did not too much continue in this idea of that there should be a safe alternative for the bank account. It was also open to the option that the Dutch Central Bank would do anything. So then this ended with a vote for by Parliament, and there were two things on the table. The one was that there should be a safe alternative outside of the banking system, so that our national government would create a public depository, which would be a place where you could keep your money completely safe outside of the banking system. That would be a kind of full reserve bank, a public full reserve bank. And a proposal to start such a bank almost had a majority. So we have 150 seats in Parliament, and it got, you need 75, and it got 71 votes in favor. So we were almost there to have our safe alternative outside of the banking system, but this was not, we did not win this. And another vote was, the alternative that was put to the table was that there should be a way for the people to store its money at the central bank, at the Dutch Central Bank. And that got a large support, about 150 votes in favor. So this debate ended with the question to the finance minister, let's start the project that people can open accounts, that the public can open an account at the central bank. There was also another concern with this, because politicians also see that the central bank is the supervisor for banks and the supervisor for payment service providers. So one thing that we always have pointed out is that we thought that safe money and safe accounts should not be provided by the central bank, because the central bank is a supervisor and should not do the activities that it is the supervisor of. And especially it should not do those activities which compete with the activities of those market parties under its supervision. So from the way how you organize things, we just think it's a stupid thing to think that safe money or safe accounts or whatever should be arranged by the central bank. It should be arranged outside of the central bank. That is our point of view, but the majority had the idea of putting it within the Dutch central bank, with this concern that they thought, well, we have to look at this issue, that the supervisor should not be, something has to be arranged for who will be the supervisor of this party that will come up with those safe accounts. So that was our national debate. And this national debate started with the presumption that money in the current system is not safe, because we have money created out of debt. Money is a liability of banks. So it's a debt of the bank, and it's backed by the debts that people own to the banks. And if debts are not serviced, then the backing of the money has a problem. So then the money can go down. So the idea of having money outside of the bank is that you go to a situation in which money is not backed by debt, and that there's no way that there can be a default in the backing of your money. So that makes the money less risky. There's still risk. You can have fraudulent situations, but you do not have the risk of people not paying their debts, and that the bank goes bankrupt and that you lose your money, or that the taxpayers have to step in to let you keep your money to a certain extent, but then create moral hazard and bail out banks. So the idea was, money in the current credit system, the credit money system, is unsafe. It's fundamentally unsafe. So we have to do something to make it better. And there's an addition to that is because of money is made out of debt, a lot of debt has been created. So much debt that the world is overloaded with debt, which keeps it in stagnation. And it has a very, very high risk of defaulting. It's almost certain that we will reach a point that debts will not be paid in a large extent, and then the whole system goes down. So you have to do something. You have to create a soft landing for this over-indebted financial system. And the proposal we put on the table does something for that. First, you make a safe place for money, and then you do something to lower the debts. But I don't think that I will go into that in this talk, because I don't have the time to do that. So our national debate was about transitioning to a kind of money which is safe money, because in the current system, it's unsafe. Now enter the ECB, because the ECB, that's the European Central Bank, also stepped into the debate. This started in the Netherlands, and the Netherlands took it to Frankfurt, and now Frankfurt took it over in a way. And it made a report. It now rephrased CBDC as the digital euro. And in the first sentence of its report, it says, we provide safe money. So the whole discussion, the whole point that we're making in the Netherlands, our work for 6 years was completely overhauled or negated, or they don't want to discuss it this way. They don't want to discuss it in a way that we have a rickety money system and we should do something about it, and that is a problem. They don't want to go there. So they say, we have safe money, we already provide safe money. Now we want to talk about a digital euro. And then instead of talking about the problems of the current money system, they are going to talk about technology of a certain digital euro. And in the whole process, what they are doing is taking the whole discussion, which was a political discussion, they're taking it to Frankfurt, to the technocrats, to come up with a design for a digital euro, which is created by bankers. And the point that we were making in Parliament is that, well, digitization is a good thing, because it will force us to think about how the digital money system will look like in the future. And it's an opportunity to think about how we would like to have our money system function. We can ask ourselves, does it function well at this point? Well, the answer is no, totally not. But how should it function? How would we like it to function? And that discussion did not really start in the Netherlands. There was only discussion about the safe alternative to the bank account. That was a very important first step. But there was no start of having a debate. How would we like to have our money system function? And now the dynamics has internationalized. It's no longer in The Hague, the initiative, or in Amsterdam. The initiative is now in Frankfurt and Brussels, and it's about technology. And then while talking about technology, they are going to set the standards. They come up with a design, which is a design, of course, which prolongs the current debt-based system, and is not a design to create a soft landing space for the current debt-based system. Now, what we think that should be the main direction to go? In the current system, we have a system based on debt. So we create money out of debt, and that gives a rickety system. It's unstable, inherent unstable. Also, the debt levels have reached a level that it's that we know that it will implode at a certain time, because at a certain moment it will be impossible to service all this overload of debt, especially when interest rates rise at a certain time in the future, and then it will be over for the current system. So you need to have an alternative. You have to make that ready. Well, our idea is to create such an alternative outside of the banking system, that when the banks fall, when all those debts are no longer serviced, then that's not a nice thing to banks, but that it doesn't hurt our money. So that we can say in a way, well, okay, so now debts are not serviced anymore, but well, we have a market economy, and sometimes it happens that someone cannot pay, and then, well, then the creditors take the loss at that point, and not the taxpayers. And the taxpayers don't have to take the loss if the money is somewhere else, if the money is not hurt by all those defaulting. So that was the idea. So, and when you have created a place for money which is not based on debt anymore, which is not based on banking anymore, which is not financing banking anymore, you can start looking at another way at what a central bank does. And what a central bank does is not much understood. Of course, it says in the European Treaty, well, the central bank, its objective is price stability, but then you don't know what it does. Price stability is more a restraint on what it can do and what it can't do, but it does not say what it does. But what a central bank actually does is enforce parity between debt instruments, for instance, deposits, and the currency. And that means that there is no market process to value the deposits, which is a debt instrument, so inherently risky. And if you price in the risk, a claim of 100 on a certain bank would never have the value of, would never be at par with the currency, but would have a free floating value in relation to the currency. But what a central bank does is block those market mechanisms and do anything to uphold parity of a claim on a bank and a currency. So what it does, what a central bank does, is protect banks at any cost. And at the moment that your money system is no longer connected to banks, there is no reason to have a public bank or a semi-public bank or a, well, in Europe, you can call it a public institution, to do anything to help certain market participants. Bakers or butchers or retail stores don't have a public institution that says, we do anything to help those businesses afloat. No, it's normal to say, well, when they are bust, and then something new can happen. People take the loss, something new can happen. So that's the situation which we would like to achieve with banks as well. That if a bank goes bust, then the bank goes bust, and nobody cares too much about it. And there's not a government institution that says we go at length, we do anything to have this this bankrupt business, to let this bankrupt business keep on going. So this is where we want to go with the whole system. That means that when you have created a safe place for money outside of the banking system, you can close down the central bank. And then at that point, you can ask yourself what to do with all those assets that a central bank has. Because at that moment that you can close down the central bank, you don't need all those assets anymore. But those assets are debts, and but also value, and you can use those assets and value to lower the debt levels in society. And a way to do that is by issuing vouchers to the public, and those vouchers, with the vouchers, every citizen gets a voucher, for instance, 25,000 euros per capita. And with such a voucher, you can go to your bank, and you can lower your debt with that bank. Your bank can go with its voucher to the central bank and lower its debt with the central bank. And so the assets at the bank of the central bank balance sheet go down, and the private debt in society goes down. So this is a way to, in a monetarily neutral way, lower debt levels. So the money stock remains the same, but debt levels are reduced. And what to say? How long do I have? How long do I have for the whole talk?
Maybe 4 more minutes, and then Edgar will go on to questions between you and Nick.
Yeah. Well, then a remaining question, it could be what to do with people that don't have debts with banks. Well, those people also get a voucher, but they cannot use it because they don't have a debt to repay. And they can bring it back to the central bank, and it gets shares in the central bank. So it will be a shareholder in the remaining assets, and that will provide an income for the coming years, maybe 30 years, that those assets in the central bank are still gaining revenue. And at a certain time that will stop, and then the whole central bank issue, the whole central bank thing will be over. Of course, it is completely opposite to what's happening now with the digital euro, because what is the essence of a digital euro? That's that the central bank wants to stay relevant in a world where we don't need banks anymore to run our money over. We don't need bank balance sheets to run our money over. We can do it in a digital way. and not in this risky way that we have had with the banking system. So they want to stay relevant, but at the same time, we have a very big risk that they are indeed going to end cash money, and that they are increasingly centralize money and banking. Because a central bank is a bank, it's a credit institution. And if you start centralizing money over there, the chances are big that you are also centralizing credits over there. And it's something that Mr. Stalin liked. He had one bank, he had one place where you could store your money, but this is not something that is compatible with the idea of a free market economy. Within the Eurozone, within Europe, it's officially that the central bank should comply to the principles of a market economy, but with this new initiative for the digital euro, the way they are now visioning it, we have to watch very carefully if this is not going too much to centralized government, centralization of money, centralization of credit, and if it's still compatible with the idea of a market economy. And of course, from a political point of view, politicians should wake up. They should not wait until the technocrats in Frankfurt and Brussels came up with a plan what to do with their digital euro. They should start thinking about how would we like to have the money system function? What is a good money system? What is a bad money system? How do we want to have it? So that's a situation we want to create. But at this point, we must say that the initiative is now in Frankfurt, and that we will have a hard time to take back initiative in the Netherlands and also in Europe. So that's the story for today.
Thank you. So yeah, things slipped away to, of course, after the introduction of the euro, it all slipped away to the European Central Bank, the ECB, to Frankfurt. In that regard, my question is, as far as European monetary reform organizations are concerned, are they bundling to get some pressure on that European Central Bank? And in that regard also, what is your or the Dutch relationship with the Positive Money EU organization that tries to put pressure on the European Central Bank, but is more concerned with environmental impact of the central bank, not necessarily on reforming the monetary system. So what prospects do you see at a European level, and with whom might you work? And or are you thinking there are too much of a bunch of bureaucrats and technocrats, and there is hardly any penetration into that, let's call it system, bureaucratic system?
Yeah, well, Positive Money Europe is doing a good job to become relevant in the debate with the ECB. But at the same time, it's losing relevance in doing something, in my opinion, useful for the monetary system. I don't favor at all the idea that central banks should do something to save the climate. And the risk is now that if saving the climate is your real thing, real issue, then the risk is that the central bank might give you some money to save the climate, whatever that may mean, and then that you are happy, and at the same time that the big thing, the way the money system is organized, is overlooked. So this packaging of climate scare and the money system, I don't think this is a healthy thing to do of course, it's good that we have to reduce pollution, and the way to do that is to create strong governments that can set the standards and can maintain the standards. And the problem that we have now is that governments are not strong because they don't control the money system. The governments are controlled by the financial powers. So the governments cannot set the standards. The government are not strong to reduce pollution. So the money system is important indeed from an environmental point of view, but not to save the climate, but to get a stronger government that can say no, can set standards to big companies, so that big companies have to behave. And if big companies behave, then people will get products that make sure that they will be less polluting. So this is the way I look at it, and this is also something that that you see some divergence between how we look at it in the Netherlands and what Positive Money is doing.
I hear you. Yes, yeah, I've been looking at that too, and I have something in the make about that.
If this video is helpful, please hit the like button, subscribe for new video notifications. Please consider donating at monetary.org/donate. Don't forget to check us out on Twitter at AMI Monetary or on our website